Hey everyone, here's a short video here showing how to use the rest of these modify commands that we didn't get to in the last video. So let's start with this stretch command. I'll demonstrate this just by drawing a rectangle. So you can click on the rectangle command and just draw a rectangle of any size that you want. Now let's show how to stretch it and modify its distance. The easiest thing to do rather than actually starting the stretch command is just to click on the rectangle itself, and then you'll be able to select different parts of it. So let's say you want to make it a little longer. You can click here on the middle of the line and just simply move it out here and click again, and now you've stretched it to be a little bit wider. You can define how far you want to stretch it. So for example, let's click here, and now I'll click on this middle point there, and let's say I want to move it a distance of 100. I can just type in 100, and now it shifted it out another 100 millimeters in this case. So again, if I want to make it, let's say 200 millimeters taller, click here, move your cursor up, you'll see that green dashed line appear, and just type in 200, enter, and now it's stretched at a distance of 200. So I encourage you to pause the video and try that yourself. All these videos you should not just simply be watching, but watch a little bit, pause, then go back and do it yourself. Alright, you can actually move lots of different things in the same way. You could click on this corner here and then move this corner wherever you would like. And notice if you put your cursor over that corner, you'll see these dimensions pop up. You see that 594.51. You can change the dimensions of the rectangle here. So let's say you've drawn a rectangle and you want to change the dimensions of it after you've drawn it. You can click on this corner, and now just by clicking tab you can change dimensions here. Alright, so here I've clicked tab until, okay, there's the length of it. I can type in a new length of 600. Alright, and then I can click again and then get down to where you define the height right here. I could define this height of 600, and so it's actually just changed those lines rather than the entire rectangle. But let me show you that same thing just with using a line. So let's take a line and just draw a line at some angle like that and hit escape. Alright, so now let's say, hey, I want to actually make this line a little bit longer. Well, let's click on this point. Right now the length of that line is 683.26 millimeters. Well, I've clicked on the end of the line. Now I can press tab, and here I could, now that the length is selected there, I could type in a length of, let's say, 500, enter, and now there's a new length of the line. You could do the same thing for the angle. Again, click on the end of the line, press the tab key until you have the angle selected. We could change it now to 45, hit enter. So that's just a little bit showing how you can modify lines, modify rectangles to stretch them or change the angles. Okay, now the next command I want to show you is this command here called the scale command. It's fairly simple. It just says, let's say I have a rectangle. Let's just draw a rectangle here, and so the rectangle is maybe small. I want to just scale it up or maybe scale it down. Well, you can just simply click on the scale command, and notice that the command prompt down here tells you what you should do in the command. It tells you to select the object. So just click on the object, now press enter, and then it tells me to specify a base point. Okay, this is the point at which at which the scale will be scaled from. Click on the base point. And then now as I'm moving my cursor, all it's asking for is what's the scale factor. You can see those words down here in the command prompt. So I can just type in a scale factor. If I want it twice as big, just type 2, enter, and now it's made that rectangle twice as big. I could make it back to the same size now by scaling it by 1/2. So why don't you try to do that? Just scale it by 1/2. Here's one way to do that. Click on the scale command, select the object, hit enter, select a base point. I normally choose a corner, hit enter, and then type in the scale factor. Whoop, 0. Sorry, I actually pressed enter one too many times. I'm going to undo that. Let's do that. Let's do that again. So here's the scale command. Select the object, hit enter, select a base point, and now a scale factor. I'll type in 0.5, and notice it's made it all the length now. That scale factor is based on length. Right? So the lengths are now half the size as they were. Alright, now I'll show you how to use this pattern command here, or I call it a pattern. It's the word for it in the software is a rectangular array. So let's show that. I'm going to do it with a circle, so let's sketch a circle any size you want. Alright, now with this circle, let's say I want to take that circle and make, I don't know, 6 more circles to the right and maybe 4 or 5 more circles up. So I can click on this rectangular array. Now just select the object that you want to pattern and click on enter, and then you'll see this nice field come up here in the ribbon where you can change the number of columns. Let's say right now there's 4 columns. Let's say if I want 6 columns. Well, now you've seen it update to 6. You can edit the number of rows here. Let's say I want 5 rows. All right. You can also adjust the spacing in between the rows and the spacing in between the columns. So let's say I want to increase the spacing in between the rows here, in between the columns. You can see I've now increased the spacing in between these columns. You can do the same thing for the rows here. I could increase that to 600, and now it's increased that spacing to 600. Click close array, and now you've just created an array based on that one circle that you created. There's another type of array which is common, and it's basically done, it's as a polar array, or another way to think of it is just as a circular pattern. And notice if you leave your cursor over that command, this little video will play showing you how to actually use the command. So let's just show quickly how to do that. The first thing I'll do, let's take a circle, and I'll make a circle of any size here. Now I'm going to create another circle that's actually on the edge of this first circle that I've created. Okay, so now I want to take this small circle that I've created, and I want to pattern it around this big circle here. So we'll, instead of click on the rectangular array, I'll click on polar array. Again, select the object that you want to pattern. I want to pattern this small circle. I'll press enter, and then it tells me to select the center point. All right, this is the point that it will pattern around. In order to do this, in your object snap, you need to have the center point selected. It should be selected already. In case it's not, you need to make sure there's a check mark there on your polar snapping. So if I put my cursor over the big circle, there's the center point. Click on the center point, and then this little field will pop up in the ribbon, which is very helpful. I can select how many circles I want to have in the pattern. I can make it 8 rather than 6, or make it 4, just changing any of those numbers. You could specify the angle at which it will pattern around. So here typically I have it as 360 degrees, so all the circles, let's say if I made it 8 circles, now they're evenly distributed. You could change that up here in this field, but typically you'll see an even distribution around. And click close array, and there it is. So now on the last video and with this video, we've shown how to use all the drawing commands here. We've shown how to use all these modify commands as well. So that should give you enough tools to draw most basic things that you need to draw.